Hi, you're listening to Cassandra
and Jennifer with Authentically Woo Woo,
where we talk about spirituality, cosmos, balance, and living authentically.
In today's episode, we talk about Mercury Retrograde, which is not like it happens 3 times a year, and we are currently in a Mercury retrograde and have been since September 27th, and we are ending in October 18th. Now, with Mercury retrograde, we shadow 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after. So don't think that everything's going to be like boop, on the 18th, because you're going to still shadow just little twinklings just to bring you back.
Twinklings.
For like 2 weeks. So, okay, what is the actual definition of Mercury retrograde? When anything is in retrograde, as far as planetary and astrology, I'm just jumping right on in this episode. I am like gunning for it.
She's excited.
So excited.
That was the energy one for me.
Yeah. This is the Mercury retrograde. Because it gets such a bad rap. And I understand why it does. But, okay, so the actual definition of Mercury retrograde is that from a planetary aspect, it looks from Earth's perspective, which is where we inhabit.
At least some of us.
Some of us are inhabiting right now. If you're watching this, you are on Earth, friends.
By the way.
I don't know if you know this, but so it looks like Mercury is going backwards, and so like retrograde means to go backwards, like retrograded payments, like, well, we were getting back paid, whatever. So Mercury in retrograde looks like it's going backwards. Is the planet going backwards, Cassandra?
No, it's not.
No, it's not. No, it's an optical illusion.
I mean, should I have said that with more energy? No, it's not.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Perfect. So it is an optical illusion, but it affects us. Because what is our perspective? I mean, if we go on a deeper, level, like our perception is our everything, is our reality, and blah, blah, blah. So anyways, from our, perspective here on Earth, it looks like it's backwards. So it looks like everything is going backwards. And those things that Mercury controls, which is communication, electronics, which how do we communicate nowadays? Through electronics, through our smartphones, through our computers, we don't send pigeons anymore with
That's
our...
a shame.
It is.
No.
It is.
I'd love to get a pigeon. Like, if pigeon came to my door, I would be I'd call everybody. I'd be like, I have a pigeon!
You would pigeon everyone.
Is that what it is?
I have no idea.
Because you're... Okay.
Yeah, you wouldn't call.
Sorry,
you would use your pigeon.
Your brilliant humor was lost on me. I'm sorry.
It was pigeonholed.
Wow, that's too natural. You're too natural at it. Okay, Mercury
retrograde. So
this is in the pigeon
episode.
What's with the pigeon?
Oh, I don't know. That's, when everything crashes and we have to. So, okay, speaking of which, the great social media crash of 2021 happened during Mercury retrograde. Good night. So we talked about like what it actually physically means. Spiritually means that it's just chaotic, right? Like it's just like, oh my gosh, what is going on with all this communication? So I didn't finish there either. See, my communication is just all flubbergasted from Mercury retrograde. No, flubbergasted. Not like flabbergasted, because flabbergasted you're like
it's a Gen dictionary.
It's a Gen dictionary. Yeah. So communications, electronics, appliances, and traveling. So like they always say, if you're traveling during Mercury retrograde, which happens 3 times a year, and this is our last retrograde for this year. Next year, we have 4 Mercury retrograde. Isn't that exciting? So Mercury retrograde, from a spiritual aspect, it's going to just like make all of those things, they're kind of foggy, right? And it's just going to not create a chaos, but just there's going to be some miscommunications. There's just going to be some mishaps with electronics. And all of that is to be expected. Now, we can't control any of those things.
Right.
All we can control is our reaction to those things. And so spiritually, Mercury retrograde causes us to slow down. Now, I'm going to talk about Mercury because not only am I so excited about Mercury retrograde, because it gets that bad rap when it's actually a quite beautiful thing. It's trying, but it's the outcome is cool. But Mercury, where I'm going to talk about some Greek mythology.
Jen, fun facts. Fun facts.
So, you had Greek mythology, and then you had the Romans, and I'm probably going to make people mad, but this is like what happened. So like the Greeks had all of their gods, well then the Romans like took those same gods and just renamed them. And so Mercury is our trickster, and he is based off of the Greek god Hermes, which you have seen. He is the little messenger. He's like the little god that has like, typically artists portray him as having like the wings on his hat and like the wings on his feet, because he is the messenger of the gods. Again, that communication. So he was their pigeon. And he also was the transporter / like commuter to Hades, who was god of the underworld, and he would help those souls transport to Hades. And like in the Disney movie Hercules, he's the little blue guy that has the little wings on his feet. And so he's a messenger. He's a little bit of a trickster. He is the god of travelers and merchants. And what was there is a protector of travelers, merchants. Oh, okay. Oh, no, that's for something else. I was trying to think of my...
You just got all the Mercury things.
All of the things.
Only Mercury things.
So, all of the Mercuries. So, it's just really interesting that this is what, in mythology, this is what he embodies, what he is the protector of, and what he is. So, in an astrology standpoint, he affects, so this planet that is named after him affects all of those things. And then whenever you put it in retrograde, so you're reversing it, you're going to have all of those mishaps and everything. So what does Mercury in retrograde mean for you?
Well, I mean, I think we covered it. So on next episode, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I mean, I don't have all the cool facts you do. But yeah, so the mishaps, that's delayed plans, miscommunications.
Yes.
I know that I've always experienced that. And, so I look at it as, it's not just happening just because you're like, oh, we're going to give those little humans a run for their money for the next few weeks. Generally, there's something behind that. There's some reason behind it. So I really love, I know for astrology, and on my journey, I've learned a lot of astrology related topics, and I've got personal natal horoscope stuff. And I noticed for me, because I don't know how I describe it, it's like, have you ever read a general even for your natal or whatever, and you just be like, oh gosh, my day,
it's gonna be horrible.
And so I'm very sensitive to that stuff, very, very sensitive to that. So I stumbled upon, and actually in one of the prior episodes, actually our last episode, we talked about Sahara Rose, which is amazing for Dharma. So on her podcast that she has, she brought on Chris Witecki. And so he is an astrologer, and I mean, I know I've shared it. He's amazing.
Yeah.
He's
like
got all the, his passion for degrees and, the way he talks astrology.
Degrees as in the natal chart within each house, you have 30 degrees.
Yeah. It kind of has a, really honed in, just long story short, it's presented in a way that, it's helpful advice. Mm-hmm. It's not like a general, you're going to have a crap day, because you're such a trying in your,
Yeah.
It's brought down on a very relatable level. So I know with Mercury Retrograde, he's talked a lot about that. And he kind of also ties in where Mercury is into the equation. So I know it's been, in Libra, and he describes it as basically, so we're coming out of Virgo season.
Yeah.
So Virgo season has been a lot of cleaning house, and he and his subscriber base, which is amazing. We'll include it in the links. But Serious Joy, he was describing it as a galactic yard sale, a yard sale. We're doing a yard sale. And we're Virgo season. We were cleaning out all these things that no longer, we're not wanting to move forward in life with these things. This is not good for us or doesn't serve us anymore. Mm-hmm. And because Virgo season's all about becoming and embodiment of, so basically he described it as, now that we've done that work, so then it comes around, Mercury is now in Libra, and what is Libra all about? Libra is about balance and
balancing those scales.
Right, and relating your relationships. So he kind of described it as, now that we've gone through all the, hello, have you been doing internal work in 2021? Yeah. I mean, it's been a lot of just internal work and dealing. It's funny, I actually looked at my natal chart today, and it's Mercury, Mars, all of the, a bunch of the big hitters are in my first house right now. And I remember when you had a lot going on in your first house, it was oh gosh, because your first house is a lot of yourself
and a lot of introspective. So I'm just gonna tell first people that aren't,
because I'm
no. So your natal chart is the chart that you're born with. That is where the galaxy was. We talked about this in the last episode. Where your galaxy was the moment you were born. You were brought into this world. That's where all the planets and everything were. Now that is your basis. Then you take every day.
The transits.
Yeah. So every day, those planets are still moving. They're still moving all the way around.
And you can all means them. Something.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And you can compare them to your natal chart. And that's where we're talking about where...
with Mercury.
With Serious Joy. Yeah. With SIR.
Like the star.
Yeah. IUS. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not serious as in wow, you're so serious.
I'm seriously joyful.
Yeah. Seriously joyful. So your natal chart is stagnant. But then you have what's going on in the world right now. This day you can compare, and those create aspects, and those create
different
planets within your different houses, and then they conjunct and whatever else with all
the levels.
Yes, yeah. All the things. So that's what you're talking about. So everything is moving to where they're in your first house right now.
Correct. Yeah. And so basically, because I am a Libra rising, which is your first house. Your first house is always going to be your rising.
Yeah.
So for me, the current season now, we're out of Virgo season and we're into Libra season. So I think, especially for me, a lot of this is still how I relate to, internally, and how that affects to the relations outwardly. Mm-hmm. And so basically how getting back to Mercury retrograde, he kind of, describes it. And did I write a note on this, or I don't think I did. No. Basically the gist of it is Mercury, now that we've done all this internal work through Virgo season, we've changed who we are.
Yeah.
You're not the same person you were, back in January or February. Yeah. And so Mercury comes around and he's like, okay, we have to come through it being in Libra. And so it's like revisiting those topics of balance between relationships. So a lot of communication things in relation to that, and stuff like that. So I know that's like a lot of it's hard with astrology. There's so many levels, but
it's fascinating of like how like I just am always, maybe that's my investigator, right? But like where I just find it so incredible that like all of it falls into place.
Yeah.
And how with it being in Libra with this Mercury retrograde. And so it's forcing us to, because since it is all about communication, and it's forcing us to revisit
conversations.
Exactly.
I know we've even experienced some of that. I experienced that with my son. I experienced that with my husband. I experienced that with people I've worked. It forces you to stop and be like, okay, what's really actually going on here? What am I dealing with internally? Which, I don't know, is hard, but at the same time, it makes me feel a little more better than just like someone up there being like, we're going to mess with the humans. It's Mercury retrograde. Expect everything to go bad. So yeah.
And so it does get that bad rap, but it's forcing us to slow down, to revisit those conversations, to revisit those
things that need tweaking. Those last minute.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been like, it's I'm just reading my notes really fast. So it sums up what it is as far as like testing those boundaries and lessons that we've been working on throughout the year, and to assess our journey as well as to be introspective. So like we're so used to like go.
Yeah.
And like we keep just doing the same thing over and over again.
Yeah, we have to change that.
Yeah.
But that's human nature. That's how we are all programmed to operate. Yeah.
So when we're like going, and we keep doing the same thing, and we keep expecting different results, like, my gosh, why isn't this working? And
if you
then
always do what you always done, you always get what you always got.
Yeah, exactly. And so times like this, 3 times throughout the year, next year 4 times.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's like, oh boy, what does 2022 have in store? But it's forcing us to slow down because mishaps happen, and then you can't just keep going because they're going to be, you're like, okay, all right. Okay, let's see. What do we have here?
Yeah.
And
it forces you to stop and think.
Yeah, it does. Which is really a beautiful thing because it helps us to be introspective. Well, and so that's where it gets the bad rap of where people don't.
Because you're having your introspect, I'm having my introspect, and they're having their introspect, and all of us are just having these delays, and all of it, the frustration that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the beauty of Mercury retrograde is to be understanding. And the best, most important piece of advice that I can give is to go with the flow. Yeah. So if you're having a shit day, you know what? It's okay. It's okay.
Because chances are
everyone else is.
If it isn't that day, it's the following.
Exactly. But it is what you make it too. And so that's like Mercury retrograde gets this bad rap in pop culture of like, oh well, you know what? This is gonna happen. I shattered my phone. So it was like the first week of...
Oh, okay. So, yeah. Because I saw before we started. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. No. It was the first week of Mercury. The first week of Mercury retrograde. And so, okay. I'm getting ahead of myself. So you shadow, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, you shadow... Oh, I might sneeze. Oh, I'm going to try to hold it. So you shadow for 2 weeks before... And then you have your Mercury retrograde, which is about like 4 weeks or so. And then you shadow 2 weeks after. And then so if you know when Mercury retrograde is, which we do. Like, you can go to, like, next year and type in
You'll
Google.
know when they are.
Just say, what are the retrogrades for 2022? And I don't know what year it is anymore. So, then you can say, okay, put it in your calendar of, like, pay attention to these 2 weeks before Mercury retrograde. What am I seeing?
What comes up?
Am I getting my wires crossed with communicating with my husband? Am I not explaining myself well to the PTO? Am in my business? Am I
contracts? I've heard
yes.
Be hesitant to go into
Sign
contracts because during Mercury retrograde.
So that is another beautiful thing of don't the wives' tale, whatever, old wives' tale is like, don't start anything new in Mercury retrograde unless you were already planning on doing it. Then that's fine. But like halfway through Mercury retrograde, don't be like, you know what? I'm gonna do blah blah blah. You might have some obstacles. That's all we're saying.
Yeah. And especially if it affects someone else, be careful of moving forward.
But at the same time, anything that we've done before in the past, this is the perfect time to revisit that. So say at the beginning of the year, you were like, those New Year's resolutions of, hey, I am going to have a paleo diet, whatever. I'm going to go to the gym however many times. I know that I'm doing this right now of like, hey, I need to get back in the gym. And so now is a perfect time to say...
To revisit.
Yeah, to revisit and say, I definitely need to get back in the gym. Or I need to, I'm going to try the paleo diet again. And way of life. I hate the word diet. But because that, again, is like another like ugly word in our culture. So, all right. So Mercury retrograde, shadow before. Now Mercury retrograde is in its optical illusion of going backwards. And so now is the time to really pay attention of, so like I said, like the first week of Mercury retrograde was, it was like, okay, all right. I didn't think it was bad. Like, I was like, oh, this is, I must be doing pretty good. Like, I'm so kind of proud of myself. And then it was like a couple days into it. I'm like, holy shit, this is kicking my ass. And I was like getting text messages from girlfriends, and they're like, what in the Mercury retrograde is going on? And I'm like, oh yeah, we're in it. We're also we're 7 planets retrograded right now.
Yeah.
But a lot of them are coming out of retrograde this month.
Dun dun dun. We won't go into what all that means.
Yeah. So but yeah, for example, my phone and it's just like happenstance things, right?
Yeah.
And so like I dropped my phone 1,000 times, but I dropped it and it shattered. Like, it's beautiful. It's just like, and of course it's an older phone, so it's not worth it to have insurance on it. So I don't have insurance on it, and it was just that every single day.
Yeah.
But what was interesting is that I would recognize it, and I would say, okay, all right, this is happening. I'm going to slow down. I'm going to slow down my actions. I'm going to slow down my words and really think about what I'm going to say, how I'm going to react instead of flying off the handle. And
I noticed that during retrograde, I tend to reach that point a little quicker.
Frustration?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Like, I get there a lot quicker than what I feel like other times it might take me to get there. Yeah. So I've really had to remind myself to, like, stop and, okay, what's going on here?
Yeah. Yes. Now, I will say that week, that was my trying week. I also had some amazing conversations that week too, which which was amazing. So it was very interesting of like looking back at that first week of retrograde. I had really low lows, really high highs, all in the same week, which, can make you feel a little crazy.
Yeah.
But so that is like, on a spiritual aspect, it's forcing us to slow down and to revisit things before we move on to the next, to our next step, our next cycle, because life is all
it's clearing
about
and healing and
yes, absolutely. Has there been anything that like you've noticed? So like we both had like the week from hell, I want to say, like that same first week, it just hit us both, I think.
Yeah, and it's funny because like that's one thing with this, and I think going back to like what we said, talking about an important key note in this is be patient with people.
Yeah.
Because it's hard, because when God, universe, source, whoever, whatever you want to call it's wanting to do work on you, it don't feel so awesome, but what, it's hard because what don't feel so awesome to you, someone else has their own don't feel so awesome, and that can look like various different things, so it's like, just being understanding, So I think the biggest thing that hit me was actually at like, literally, it was like the first day it was really announced, like, oh, it's retrograde, So I know we had plans to go to Disney, and I was all excited.
And we had these plans for a month, at least.
Yeah, at least. And, and we have a joke in our household because, like, I'm not a morning person. Not at all a morning person. So, like, if my husband sees me wake up in a good mood, he's like, oh, she's going to Disney. Like, that's our thing. He's like, oh, you must be going to Disney today. You're happy and in a good mood. And it's only 7 a.m., and I'm like, well, actually, yeah. Well, this particular morning, I woke up happy, but it was just a series of things that happened. And, like, the best way to describe it was a clash of like all of these emotions from various people all at once. I know you were trying really hard to make things happen, but once again, like the, plan's not going as, intended, and you needed your day home, the universe says, and it, and the universe said, no Disney for you, and I needed that day home. And so what was supposed to be a day at Disney instead ended up being a very heavy day at home with a lot of introspect,
a lot of homework.
A lot of homework, a lot of shadow work. And so for me, what came out of it, though, just to kind of giving an example, of how it plays out. So I wanted to go to Disney. I love Disney. Woke up happy, ready to go to Disney. It didn't work out to go to Disney, but what did happen was, a circumstance with my son, which exploded with the circumstance with, conversations with my husband. And basically it was this what seemed on the surface like a little thing, but the deeper message of all this was my response to a circumstance with my son, I realized, had deeper indications of myself, and the sense of, I really want to talk about it, but maybe if we should take a pause.
Should we hear from our sponsors?
To hear from our sponsors. She does this transition thing way better. You'll know when it's me talking. Okay.
We'll see you soon.
Welcome to the DW World History Series. I'm your host, David Wainwright. and I'll be taking you through 3,000 years of Egyptian history, beginning with King Narmer and ending with the last native Egyptian ruler, Nekhtaneba II, in 343 BC. If you follow our video series, you experience one of the most detailed presentations on this great civilization. A podcast series is available for download at dwworldhistory.com. Here you will also find detailed outlines for each episode with additional resource material, maps, and bibliographies. Please remember to like us on Facebook and subscribe to our channel on YouTube. And now, join us as we take you through the world of history.
So before the break, we were talking, Cassandra was explaining her story with Mercury Retrograde, and a story that you wanted to delve deeper into about you and your son.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So, basically we are talking about, the plans not going as intended, and basically what came out of that. Like on the surface, while it might have looked like a small thing, but what came out of that was realizing, the situation with him ended up coming around to realizing, in these various podcasts, I know I've talked a lot about insecurity. It seems like a big thing that I'm like, things keep coming up and I'm learning more. So it went back to a little bit of like my childhood and being raised in an atmosphere where it's like, if there was a fight, whose side are you on? It was like that, pick a side, them against me sort of thing. And that
you and your sibling were forced to
between the parents. And that dynamic wasn't just in the home. It was like to relatives or, there were orders and, things as far as like, you can't see, this relative before this person see, there was just a lot of this, it was this feeling of, I'm trying to think of the word for it, but it was this feeling of just being like sought out or separated or the me against you. And I realized like I struggled with insecurities in my own relationship with my child. Because of it, because it's like so much of my life I was used to that, this person is going to love that person or the other person more than that person. And there was just like this hierarchy and this, pressure and push and pull between relatives. And that's not fair to anybody, No. And so, and this isn't to say that there isn't such thing as a child, like, taking to one parent or another. Yeah. But it is to say that if I'm coming at circumstances with that insecurity from the get-go, whether that is or isn't what it is, it causes tension and strife. So basically it was something small that ended up being realizing, that how my actions, I didn't even realize that's what was going on. And so it was like this whole process of unraveling the circumstance. And if, our plans didn't get messed up, if this didn't happen, if that didn't happen. So it was like these.
You hadn't been slowed down
right
enough to be introspective.
Right, exactly. So that would be, I think, a fair example of, I didn't foresee the day definitely going that way, but it forced me to slow. And that's a big thing. Like, that's a big thing. And I know even, with my husband, there's been times where, he's felt the feelings of that perspective. And I didn't even realize I was doing it, and I mean, he's who he is and I'm who I am. I am not meant to be him and he's not meant to be me. And, we're exactly, both of us individually we're put in Dylan's life for a reason.
Yeah.
So it's just like, realizing, I had to go through and realize what was going on and being like, okay, this is something, shadow work, that I had to kind of clear out and go through and sort through myself. But, it could have just as easily been like, our plans got disrupted. This happened, that, and it could have just been a bad mood and a lot of people mad at each other and, irritated and unsympathetic. But that's where we're saying, have compassion.
Yes.
Stop, think about it, reflect. Is there anything you can see out of this situation? Mm-hmm. And even if you can't immediately, just try to... it's Mercury retrograde, give a little slack, and then I wouldn't be surprised if at some point or another you then realize, okay,
you have your aha moment.
there was the message.
Yes. Yeah.
So.
Which is this is why we're talking about it, because it's this big stereotyped thing of where it's just going to be mass chaos, which, okay, so that might be the truth, like, on the surface, but there's always, what is the iceberg? The iceberg is 90% under the surface. So if we're always just focusing on the tip, and we're not, sorry. And we're not.
I don't know what to do with you.
I don't know. I'm so immature. I'm so sorry. But the iceberg. So, just like these things that are happening, if we are only focusing on them at face value, and we're not going, okay. Hold on, these two crazy ladies that I listened to were like, stop.
What are you saying, two crazy ladies? Like,
I'm sure there's two crazy ladies out there.
Oh my God.
That I should stop and I should say, okay, all this stuff is happening. Like, let me just take a step back and look at everything, take a breather, count to 10, and then say, okay, I'm going to show this some compassion. Yeah. I'm going to show myself kindness and my self-love, and let's see if I can figure out a different way to communicate this, or let's see if I can figure out a different way to dissect it in my head, type thing. Yeah. So that is, I hope if anything that we have taught you, like, yes, Mercury retrograde is tough, but it's those lessons, reinforcing those lessons, testing those things that we've been learning, throughout the year, and seeing, are we holding fast? Are we learning those lessons, or are we going to have to learn this all again next Mercury retrograde?
Let's not.
So let's learn our lessons, right? And
learn our lessons.
And just show compassion, because while you're having a really crappy day, other people are having really crappy days too, and it just seems like things are falling apart. But if you come from a place of compassion, it'll just make things a lot easier and go with the flow.
And you'll be that much better the next time around.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it'll just get easier. And you're like, oh, yeah, it's Mercury retrograde, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So join us. Oh, do you have anything to add? I'm sorry.
No.
Okay.
I think
All right. We covered it?
Yeah. We did it.
Yay! So our next episode, we will be talking about the moon and lunar cycles, and very excited about that. So please join us next week, and we will see you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye!